different than social, but this year I've worked on having intra-club matches.
Yes.
On a Thursday night. Not every Thursday, it's about once a month at the moment. We've had 3 rounds already, and this is where let's just make it.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Maloney takes. It's in! It's Ben Watson! It's Ben Watson for Wigan Athletic! They've surely won the FA Cup! For Dave Whelan! For Roberto Martinez! You just cannot write scripts like this!
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. Hello again, George Danikian, joined by Lockie Flanagan, who's actually manning the console and making sure that we not only start the program properly, but finish it as well. I was just listening to that little teaser, talking about you cannot write a script like that. I bet you there are a bundle of sports directors, also, club committeemen who are working really hard in this early pre-season of the A-League, 2022-2023, and they are thinking to themselves, what script do you think we can mount or write for our clubs this year? And amongst them will be Macarthur Bulls, who are looking very much at getting back on track. They had a season of injuries. They had a season of disappointment. The coach left and so on. So the Macarthur Bulls, as we know them, the new club out of New South Wales, very keen to not only make an impact, but continue to make waves. And they've started announcing some of their players, and we'll be talking to their sports director, Sam Krslovic, very, very shortly. We're then reaching out to Simon Hill, the voice of the game down under, to talk about not only what beckons a new season, Network 10, what did they learn from their last season? And there'll be many of you telling me and Lockie, they need to learn plenty. And the answer is of course, that there were mitigating circumstances, but like any business entity, they need to make amends, they need to make adjustments, and they are doing that, and we'll find out just what they're doing. Yeah. And then we'll catch up with a mate of mine who's been watching the cricket, actually. And I said to him, that's an easy task. That test match between Australia and Sri Lanka didn't last long. Let's see what the second test brings in Sri Lanka. Then test number 2, Australia and Sri Lanka, starting on Friday. But he also is a huge sporting fan. He's an old teacher. They love imparting knowledge. His name's Stuart Thomas, and I'm looking forward to catching up with him a little bit later in the bulletin. So stay with us. An interesting hour coming up with 3 special guests. And Lockie, what was the most interesting thing that I suppose impacted on you, other than what's going on at Wimbledon and Nick Kyrgios and the adventure and the carnival around that? What else has been going on that pleased you? And by the way, the only reason I mention Nick is because I need to remind you that Nick Kyrgios and a young woman who plays, who's plays some wonderful tennis in Britain. Her name is Emma Raducanu, both Spurs fans.
Well, you didn't really need to let me know that. You wanted to let me know that. There's a very, very big difference there.
Two outstanding young talents, making serious waves, and both Spurs fans, along with Adele. So our celebrity team might stack up pretty well against anything you throw up from Arsenal.
It's quite possible. I think we've got one of the princes though, if memory serves me correctly. But let's not get too deep into that. I'll tell you what did excite me this weekend. Obviously, we already had the Australia Cup draw this time last week when we were speaking.
Absolutely.
But all the fixtures have been confirmed now, so it's nice to see that we're going to have football back.
It's starting to gel, isn't it?
As soon as the 21st of July, Bentley Greens and the Broadmeadow Magic will be, I think, the first game of the round of 32.
And you mentioned Bentley Greens, who have, on a couple of different occasions, made quite an impact and launched a serious campaign in what was the old FFA Cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to see them, who are they playing up first?
They're playing Broadmeadow Magic, who are, if I'm not mistaken, a side they met a few years ago in the round of 16. So and they beat them on the day pretty comprehensively, if I remember. So they'll fancy their chances of getting to the quarters and. Yeah, maybe even getting to the round of 16, and maybe
so
even
another
further.
campaign in the wind.
They haven't had the best NPL Victoria season, but they are still in the hunt of making the top six, which we all know anyone in the top six can win the grand final.
Sure.
And it's almost they've almost got the Australia Cup DNA, don't they?
They do. And can I just say the other club that tends to do it is out of New South Wales, and it's Harpia.
Yes.
And every time there's a campaign, they seem to be able to put a team together, and they have. We've said it before, the DNA.
Unfortunately, they won't be featuring in the national rounds this season.
You're allowed to make the occasional miss.
Some years you have less Australia Cup DNA than others. That's understandable.
But just getting back to Bentley Greens, what have you made of them thus far? How does the team actually come together?
Well, it's interesting. They've come off the back of a difficult few weeks in the league where they have struggled to find the back of the net, 2 back-to-back 0-all draws, but they washed all that away last Friday night with a 4-0 win over Green Gully, who at the time were in 4th place. So they are 1 point out of the top 6 now. They've closed the gap to Gully. So they're, I think, probably lifting themselves back up at the right time. I think on a few occasions this season, having players feature consistently has been a bit of a difficult, been a bit of an issue for them. They've had a few injuries to crucial players, particularly Pierce Waring, who was really the standout for them at the start of the season, was banging the goals in, and then since then has sort of been in and out of the side. But I think once they put all the pieces together, Bentley, they are a really, really strong side, and I think Nick Tolios, their coach, is a big talent in Victorian football, to be honest with you. And look, I fancy them if they get past Broadmeadow Magic and get into the round of 16, potential to maybe face an A-League opponent like Heidelberg are doing against Brisbane Roar. I think they're one of those sides that can step up because of the way they play, the possession-based system. They're a team that likes to knock the ball around the park. Those kind of sides usually do stack up quite well against A-League opponents. It makes the jump for them is a little bit easier, I find.
Good point. I noticed that Heidelberg had a banana skin that they slipped on the other day, leading 2-0 against South Melbourne. They've had great competition over the years with South Melbourne, and
I was at that game.
And what did you make of this?
Well, the Nike FC Cup final for the women on the day, it was a crazy game, really, because going into this, South Melbourne's NPLW side who played this game against Heidelberg, coming into the game, for those of you who don't know, Heidelberg sitting in second, still a fair bit behind Calder, who have only conceded 4 goals in the NPLW Victoria this season, but clearly best of the rest behind Calder by a considerable distance. South Melbourne going into this game, meanwhile, had lost 4 consecutive games. The finals looked a mile away. They sacked mutually agreed to part ways with their coach on the day of the semi-final.
Yeah.
On the day of the semi-final, their under-19s coach George Georgiadis took the helm, as he will do for the rest of the season in an interim capacity. So you're looking at those two storylines going into the semi-final, and you're thinking there is no chance whatsoever that South Melbourne have got a hope in hell of winning this game.
I have told you before, the ball is round.
Well, and it was a massive. The whole upset pretty much hinged on this colossal sliding doors moment in the first half, where at 2-0 up, Heidelberg were really, really in control of the game. They brought a really strong high press that South was struggling to deal with, and Danielle Weiss, who is the competition's equal top goal scorer at the moment, alongside her teammate Steph Galea, missed an open goal to make it 3-0. And within 2 minutes, Jana Lawson scored this ridiculous goal. It was a sort of a cross-come shot, if you will.
We've seen a few of those.
If you remember Mate Dugandzic in the Melbourne Derby in, I think, 2014 or something, just this looping cross that goes all the way in right before the half-time. And then from there, that must have just given them the belief, even though they were still behind, that South Melbourne needed. They went into the break. It must have been an incredible team talk, and out they came, and it was Grace Taranto who scored the equaliser very early on, and then towards the end of the game, Georgia Candelas making it 3-2. So really, all things considered, a remarkable result for South Melbourne, given the month they had leading into it, and maybe that just gives them a belief heading into the crunch of the season, and also a sign of what this team is actually capable of, because there is some A-League women's level talent in this team that I think would admit. And we actually had Francesca Iamano, one of the Melbourne Victory and South Melbourne crossover players, if you will, join us a few nights ago on Radio Dub. And she said as much. This team is capable of achieving more than it has. On paper, they're one of the best sides in the league. And yeah, maybe this is the performance that finally shows them what they're actually capable of.
What have I said to you about playing games on paper? We don't play them on paper.
Yeah.
We set them down on paper. We give everyone a chance to look at the games, but they're played on the pitch in real conditions and in real time, and so many things can occur. And we've seen it time and time again. And yet we are resistant to seeing what's in front of us sometimes. Speaking of being resistant, we're not resistant to meeting our first guest. Is he with us yet?
He isn't yet. We're still waiting for Sam Krslovic to join us.
Let's hope we can get him up very shortly, the sporting director at MacArthur Bulls. We want to talk about some of the latest developments and some of the new personnel that will be entering the club and looking to make an impact. And I noticed that was one of the young men, and I want to talk about him when he comes on board, may well be one of those stories that turns up and gives a lot of people a huge smile, because there's a young man who's been very keen to ply a trade and, the courage of his convictions. He went overseas. I'm talking about young Anthony Carter. Went to Italy, didn't know the language. As you can imagine, the challenges that befell him. He ran into a young guy called Piscopo, Reno. They became good mates. He then got an opportunity to go and play the game in Romania, which again tested him, which is the normal way that things happen when you set yourself on a path overseas to make a career. That injury or that journey then took him to Portugal. Played in the Benfica B, the second division. And of course, from there he made his way to Asia to play for Bangkok United, and suddenly we see his name turning up at the MacArthur Bulls. I want to know a whole lot more. A mate of mine who knows players, who understands the challenges that many young footballers have to face. Lou Sticker was very keen to support him and help him, and he seems to have a pretty good team around him, a support team. Let's see if it bears fruit, because these are good stories, redemption stories like this, especially if he can stay away from injury, which is what has hurt his career over the years. Look, it'd be wonderful to see a young man put his hand up and announce himself.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been a bit of a trend for MacArthur so far in this off-season, and they have been a very active club, one of the most active, particularly in the
as they needed to be,
particularly in the last week. But yeah, it's been a bit of a common theme repatriating Australian talents who have been plying their trade overseas recently. Obviously, Anthony Carter, the one you mentioned, but Matt Miller, of course, is back from his stint in Scotland with St Mirren.
I noticed Josh Parrish, our seasoned operative, who spends a lot of his time these days in brand new tracksuits that have the markings of Preston on them.
Yes.
He's out there making an impact.
Must be very nice. He announced some free merchandise.
I was going to say, he announced very quickly that Matt Miller was in the country. Could he be picked up by an A-League club? Well, he has.
It didn't take very long. It didn't take very long to do it. But I think that's a really, really good signing for MacArthur, to be honest. Obviously, they were intending to have Lewis Miller join them for the season. But of course, he was signed for a brief moment at MacArthur, and then within a matter of seconds made the terrible decision, in my own view as a Hearts fan, to go across the hips. I joke. Going to Scotland is a good move in my view.
Let's take a break. And when we come back, see if we got Sam Krslovic joining us from the MacArthur Bulls.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Penalty conceding kind of situation, but Atkinson did well. Oh my goodness! Have you seen a more freakish goal in A-League history? Riley McGreen with a scorpion kick into the top corner. It's one of the most amazing things we've ever seen. Come on, Ernie, on your feet.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. George Danikian, Lockie Flanagan, State of Our Football Nation is the program, and joining us all the way from New South Wales via Zoom is the sporting director at the MacArthur Bulls, Sam Krslovic. Sam, welcome. Technology, it's a wonderful thing if it works. Have we got Sam up
Hello,
yet?
Sam. Do we have you there?
Sam? Hello, Sam?
Audio seems to be not connected at the present moment, but he's definitely there. He'll be with us.
There. Okay, we're
in a
waiting
second.
for
Just
the wonderful bits about technology. It takes a little while to engage and the audio connection to be made, and once that is up and running, we'll be able to speak to Sam about what's going on.
Look, there's plenty of good things to be speaking to Sam about as well, because we've mentioned all the signings that MacArthur have made, and of course their coach as well, who they've signed up for this season. Is a bit of a marquee appointment.
What, I guess. You think Dwight York might have an easy run at it because he's been here before?
No, by no stretch of the imagination do I think that, but I think it's an exciting appointment, one that I'm excited to
great profile
to talk to Sam about as well. Sam, do we have you there now?
I believe we do. Sorry, gentlemen.
No stress whatsoever.
Sam Krslovic, how are you doing? Is it all that water that's been falling on New South Wales that's causing enormous upheaval even for our Zoom?
It could be, mate, because we're actually, to be honest, very close to the office is very close to the land, sadly, that's been flooded in Camden and surrounding areas again.
How tough has it been for a great many of the areas around you? You're right in the middle of it, from what I can determine.
Look, it's, obviously we know a lot of people in the area personally, and we met through the years who have been flooded for the third time in 6 months, George. Livestock, restaurants, businesses, all underwater. They're pretty resilient out here, but fortunately, I think it's, even this takes a toll both mentally and physically and financially. So, the other day here, I was in the office and, it took me about 3 hours to get home. That just tells you what it's like out here.
Our thoughts are with all of you and the residents in the area and the people of New South Wales and Queensland that have been affected seriously by this terribly inclement weather that's really taken a toll of so many different parts of New South Wales. I can't believe the pictures. I'm a New South Wales boy, eastern suburbs, western suburbs throughout the years. I can remember times when getting ready for cricket season, it seemed like we were never playing because there were about 9 weeks of constant rain. And it did not fill me with a great deal of pleasure. But to see so many people really struggling, and as you touched on, in real strife, we can only hope they get the support they need, both from state level and federal level. New government needs to make sure that it sets the right tone. Very difficult times, yes, because we're coming off a very awkward what was 2 years of pandemic, which nearly became 3 years of pandemic. But there's so much to be done. How are you guys coping? Because the new season is coming at us at 1,000,000 miles an hour. We've got some interesting players that have just put their hand up to want to come back. And, of course, just down the road, we've got in 2023 a phenomenal opportunity to take and showcase to the world the Women's World Cup when we share it and co-host it with New Zealand. So tremendous time to be in the game and a tremendous time to put some runs on the board. You guys have jumped early with some great names. What have you made of the movement, and what have you made of some of the new arrivals?
Oh, obviously, we're excited by the new arrivals. It's pretty much a plan that was put into place before Ante left. So we had a plan of recruitment and what sort of players we needed to strengthen the side. And, for us, we've just continued along that way. I've made it on the record that we're a club with a plan that we stick to it, and regardless of who's the coach and comes in and doesn't come in, the recruitment still goes on the basis of what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
The first time I saw the team last year or last season in the flesh, it was very different than watching you guys on TV. Very much physical, a lot of big units in that squad. Have you added more big units, or have you tried to mix and match now with the quality that's available to you?
No, look, I think our profile is, we've gone with the strength and speed, although we've gone for a bit of a younger age group. But,
yep.
If you look at players, they're physically, what's expected of the A-League. And I think we're just evolving as a club and as a team through that path and plan we had from about 3 years ago.
But the point I was trying to make is that they're very much bigger than they look on camera.
Yeah, they are big boys. Yeah,
they are. Big. You feed them well, is what I'm saying, and that's no bull.
Some of them have less fat than a greyhound. So yes, some of them are very tall boys. Yes,
yeah, big units. Big units.
Yes.
Well, Sam,
yes,
of course, you've got your processes for who you sort of try to target in your recruitment, and that stays regardless of who the coach is. But leading these people at the end of the day will be quite a headline name, known to pretty much everyone in the Australian game in Dwight Yorke. Now, there was a lot of fanfare, a lot of talk about this appointment. Obviously, someone who has a really credentialed playing career, has done his coach's badges, but hasn't had any distinct managerial experience before being appointed as your head coach. What was it, as you went through the process leading up to the appointment of Dwight, that you saw in him that you really liked and that sort of helped you make your decision to appoint him as your head coach?
Well, there's a number of things that go into making a head coach. Firstly, I went and talked to a number of Aussie coaches, and before we proceeded to look at overseas coaches, and quite frankly, I personally wasn't comfortable with everyone doing the same thing. It's always over the same thing. Albert Einstein said, "Do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result is the definition of insanity." So everybody I spoke to had the same ideas, the same way, the this and that. And I think the A-League, to an extent, that some capacity has become too stagnated and too the same sort of thing. So I thought, well, let's think of new ideas, something different, someone outside the circle. And obviously Dwight's name popped up. He's a guy with an distinguished playing career. He's done some coaching at junior level, and why not give it? Why not try that? It's something different. So from my perspective was, let's see what happens. Look, the fact of the matter is, regardless of who we went with, would have been a rookie coach. That's fact. He wouldn't have been an experienced coach. It would have been a rookie coach. Whether we promoted from within, whether we took a system from another club, it was always going to be someone who hasn't coached at this.
You wanted fresh ideas, so you brought someone fresh into the mix. I like that idea, and we saw how he coped with that group of young A-League stars who took on Barcelona. That was appealing. And what did you make of it?
Yeah, I think look, having a look at them. They were well organised. They were well structured. I think they had good motivation. There was good camaraderie in the team, and that's from what you see on the outset when you look at these sort of things. That sort of that's tick the boxes that you're looking for.
He let them run, and I'm reminded of the running of the Bulls. He let these young players off the leash, and that's not easy to do against the quality of a team like, or a set of players like Barca.
No, it's not. It's not. But I think that epitomises Dwight was like that as a player. He played with a lot of free reign when he played it, in his career. So I think that sort of epitomises his thought as a coach. He let the players express themselves within reason, within structures, and we're hopeful that's what we will transition to throughout the course of the season.
When's the first game?
First game is, ironically, in a lovely town of Queensland town. I don't know if it's a town or a city, but of Mackay.
Yeah, we know Mackay. We know Mackay. You'll love it up there. Yeah, go on. Yeah,
30th of July on a Saturday. So we encourage all against the Magpie Crusaders. We encourage all residents of Mackay to come out and support their local club in an FFA Cup clash.
It's always fun to come up against a team who has, as much as I like the MacArthur Bulls, the best name in Australian football, Mackay with Sunday Magpies Crusaders. You can't beat that. You cannot beat it.
A great name, I must say.
Well done. Sam, how's it going restructuring and getting the new players in? You've got a couple of names that you've released today. Young Anthony Carter. What have you made of him?
Yeah, look, I mean, we've been tracking Anthony Carter for about over 12 months. So, he's been on the radar for a while. We've kept a close interest on him, watching how he performed, what he does in the scheme of what we require from, obviously one of our strikers. We want someone who's, he's a tall boy, he's lanky, he's fairly quick, he's hard. For the Australian conditions, I think he's ideal. So when we're looking at one of our number nines, that's the profile we wanted. So we want, sort of two different types of number nines, and he fitted the big, lanky striker. Sadly, we didn't retain Juric, went to Victory, and also Gianu, because of personal reasons, went back to Greece. So it's sort of, we needed to find one in that mould. So this is the one that we came up with. Obviously recruiting's limited because of the foreigner rule, and we already had 3 foreigners on the books.
Yep.
So, you have to find an Aussie boy, and, I'm glad we've found one.
What fascinates me about this young Australian that you've found, he's had the opportunity to showcase his wares around the world, but he's also been knocked around by injury. Now, if you can keep him fit, the potential is enormous. That's from what I hear from the people I know in that inner sanctum who've promoted and pushed him over the last 6 months.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, you don't get signed by Benfica, and he got loaned out to their B team, but you don't get signed at Benfica if you don't have something. Let's face reality.
Yep.
So he definitely got something. Hasn't played in Australia. There's an unknown element. Left here when he was quite a young teenager. So, like I said, we're excited by what the potential Anthony can have, and he's very much an unknown.
Well, maybe a final one for you, Sam, before we let you go. Obviously, the squad's still got to be finalised, and there's been plenty of clamour amongst the A-League about this wish list of big names to bring into the A-League marquees, and we've seen Cesc Fabregas linked with A-League clubs. We've seen Nani linked with A-League clubs. Is that something that MacArthur in any respect plan to lean into? There does seem to be a bit of zeitgeist for marquees in this off-season.
Well, I think it's good for the league. Every club should look at marquees that come across their desk. I think, it will help the league and help the marketing. The fact of the matter is a high-class, top-notch marquee. The marketing you get from that person, you can't get from spending dollars on newspapers, advertisements, commercials, and that's reality. So, obviously, we're interested in potential of signing a marquee of that nature. I'm sure other clubs are too, and everyone's exploring their options.
I've got to say I agree with you, because a good marquee, a special marquee, if they land, they're more than just a footballer. They become a great promotional piece. They're also capable of being used in the corporate world to showcase to business what it takes to be a winner. I saw with David Villa, and when we had Damien Duff here at Melbourne City, we had calls on him almost every other day by business wanting to join them, for a lunch or for a brunch or for a morning breakfast, just to talk to them about what it takes to be a winner. So you get the right marquee, you get more than just a player, don't you?
That is right. I saw the effect on when my 8-year-old daughter at the time who didn't know any footballers, except maybe Sydney United footballers that she used to go watch on a Sunday, but no A-League footballers. And then when Del Piero hit, she knew who Del Piero was, and she wanted a Del Piero jersey, and she wanted to go watch Del Piero play.
Yeah. See, that's what it is. That's the drawing power, the magic. Sam, we're going to talk to you. We're going to draw on you throughout the year, if you don't mind. We want to make sure that we give all the clubs of the A-League every possible chance to get their message across, and to their fans, to tell them what's going on and to keep them busy. We understand the difficult times at the moment in New South Wales. We wish you all the very best, and good luck. We'll be monitoring what happens in Mackay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sam Krslovic, the sporting director from the MacArthur Bulls. We'll take a break. When we come back, Simon Hill, the voice of the game down under, wanting to talk to us about what's happening at Network 10 and the A-Leagues coming up.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants. Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. State of Our Football Nation. Lockie Flanagan is running the console. I'm alongside him. Welcome if you're watching us on Facebook. I'm the one with the Paris Saint-Germain gear. You're in, what colour is that?
I think it's orange, but it's not quite as suave as your PSG Jordan release.
That orange, that looks like brown. That looks like almost one of those colours.
Maybe this might be an off-air discussion.
You've got a special guest and you've got him in the waiting room. I think it's an opportunity to introduce him.
Yeah, and he's waited very patiently, so we appreciate him hanging around for us. None other than the voice of football here in Australia. I'm sure he's getting tired of maybe hearing people refer to him as that, but we love him all the same. Simon Hill, a warm welcome to you.
Thanks, guys. No, it's always nice to hear.
Always fun. Yeah.
Simon, congratulations. You had a tremendous opportunity last night to talk about the game in Brisbane. You want to just run us past, for those who didn't catch up, you had a chance to do something that not all of us get a chance to do. That is mix with some wonderful players from the past and talk about something very, very special.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I was invited to MC a centenary event, excuse me, for the Socceroos, launch of a book called Burning Ambition, co-authored by Trevor Thompson, formerly of the ABC, and Nick Goth, who's a historian who now lives in London, Queen's Park Rangers supporter. And it's all about the story, essentially, of that first test series in 1922 between New Zealand and Australia. And there were quite a few ex-Socceroos in attendance last night, including the likes of Cole Bennett, Frank Farina, John Cosmina, Jade North was there, and one or two others, and representatives of Alec Gibb's family. Now, Alec Gibb, I'm sure you're aware, was the first ever Socceroos captain in that first test against New Zealand, 1922. So his grandchildren, Ross Williams and Rachel Moen, were there last night, along with his great grandson, Benjamin Williams.
How fabulous. How fabulous.
Yeah, and the thing that I learned afterwards was that Rachel Moen's son was Ben Moen, who actually captained the Wallabies as well. So it's quite a sporting...
I was going to say that's quite some pedigree. Yeah. You're talking about real sporting DNA. That's fantastic stuff. What was the feeling for you having this opportunity? From the Socceroos who were there? What was the? I'm trying to understand if they're as excited as so many others are about what the game is trying to do, and that is pay homage to the past, acknowledge some great people that played the game. And, you know, I remember every time I speak to Ted Smith, he takes me back to that wonderful time in '56 when the Australian team, you know, had an opportunity to create some great history at the Olympics. And it was marginalised and compromised by the fact that they basically picked a team out of two states, you know. because that was how it worked at the time. And most of the money
it was the same in 1922.
Wow.
It was the same in 1922. It was only Queensland and New South Wales, which is why they actually played in sky blue jerseys, sky blue being of New South Wales, of course, with the maroon trim for Queensland. Now, the other states were invited to contribute.
Yep.
I think South Australia at the time said they couldn't afford it. Victoria did have a bit of money, but opted against it.
Wow.
So, even in those days, and some things don't change, 100 years on, we've still got politics that are, and I think there was a lot of politics about how the team was chosen as well. So that there were 8 New South Welshmen and 8 Queenslanders that went on the tour. Originally, a New South Welshman in Alan Fisher was chosen as the captain. But before the official test started, they played some tour games, of course, very much in the mode of, cricket tour games of the past. And Alan Fisher decided that Alec Gibb would be a better captain. So he handed over the armband. I'm not even sure they wore an armband in those days. But, so it's fascinating to learn all this history. And I think, I've only been in Australia for 20 years, but the history of this game has always fascinated me since the day I arrived, because nobody seemed to know, A, too much about it, and B, didn't really want to talk about it. It was almost like we were a bit embarrassed about it. And I found that baffling, to be honest. So I've been a keen student of it. I don't pretend to know as much as, people who've lived here all their lives, but I do know that we are particularly poor curators and tellers of our own stories.
Spot on.
So, to have this opportunity, and this is only obviously a very small part of Australian football's history in this country, but it's an important part nonetheless. And, John Cosmina, who I interviewed last night, I asked him a question last night because, of course, I'm sure he scored the first ever National Soccer League goal in 1977 for West Adelaide against Canberra.
Yes.
And that was at Manuka Oval in Canberra. And I said, have you ever been invited back? Is there anything there? Is there a plaque or some commemoration? Because not only was it the first goal, because it was the first game as well of the old National Soccer League. No, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And this is a story that echoes right across the country. A journalistic friend of mine, Michael Caine, tried to do a story on Adamstown Rosebud, who you might remember won the NSL Cup in 1984, their biggest and only ever senior trophy. And guess what? They don't know where the trophy is. They lost it. Nobody, and it's the same story across the country. You remember the story of the Australia Cup that was found in a rubbish tin?
Yep, correct.
At the Harcoa Club. I mean, this is how we treat the history of our game in this country, and it's extraordinary. I mean, it would be laughable if it didn't make me so irritated. And thankfully, we're starting to try and put this right a little bit. And a lot of credit should go to Benita Mercedes, who runs Fair Play Publishing. She's publishing a lot of these books that are telling these stories. But still, people really, in general, have no clue.
No.
And I'm sure you've had the same conversations, George, down the years. You speak to people and they go, football or soccer, as people invariably call it, they think it's a new game, that it started in the 50s with the migrant clubs.
No.
It's just simply not true.
The Australian rules people have been very, very good at a narrative, providing a narrative and enriching
historical
everybody.
Revisionism.
They're marvellous at it. And, I can't knock them because, it shows you what you can do with almost nothing. So imagine now what we can do with what we have. And I'm reminded that the world is going to come under, next year. And this, two nations, Australia and New Zealand, that have sporting pedigree like very few other nations around the world, because that's how it's been, will have a chance to open their cities up and showcase some wonderful, wonderful experiences. And I hope that every one of those is gold, and it just means an awful lot. Now, speak to me about some more gold, because you've been now through this first painful year, this transfer from what was Fox TV to free-to-air television and streaming TV, Network 10.
Well, I didn't go through that personally because I wasn't at Fox
but you've been through this first year of Network 10 and Paramount Plus, and it's been, it's come with all the attendant problems that we saw emerge or fall on everybody when Optus came into the game and bought just about everything that was meaningful and said to the world, here we are, we're going to show you some of the best football in the world. And then, of course, we couldn't see a thing. They bought the World Cup and they couldn't deliver it. So it was offered back to SBS for nothing so that they wouldn't embarrass just about everybody. But this year, I believe you guys have had a lot of things, going against you. There, as I said before, mitigating circumstances, and COVID had a deep challenge. And I remember, as I said to you once before, Jeff Bullock said to me, we don't know where we're going. We can't get the crews out there because the borders are closed. So, let's throw that out the way. What's coming up? What's next? Are you guys getting ready for what promises to be, and I mean this, a full season of APL, unencumbered and with some real air in their sails?
Well, as we speak today, I mean, I'm not, because we're in the off season and some of us are having a little bit of a break.
Really?
Which obviously we could do with. We've got some exhibition games coming up, obviously, over the next week or so, which we've got the immediate attention. The likes of Aston Villa, Leeds, Manchester United, and one or two others. Crystal Palace, I think, are here as well. So I'm going to be calling a couple of those games. Once the dust settles on all that, and we've had a bit of a break, and I'm heading off to the UK for a bit of a holiday after that.
Safe travels.
And then we'll settle down. So thank you. And then I'll watch a bit of Premier League, of course, whilst I'm over there.
Rub it in. Go on, rub it in.
You sound like you're being forced to watch the Premier League.
Yeah. Can you imagine Simon Hill forced to watch the EPL?
If I have to watch the Premier League,
What's that ground do you think he might go to first?
I think it's pretty short odds. It's probably one game. It's good. Etihad, surely.
Yeah, surely it'll be.
Well, actually, it won't be. I can tell you that the first stadium I'll be going to, well, hopefully, if I can get a ticket, is the King Power, because they're playing the Charity or the Community Shield. I still call it the Charity Shield. Yeah. They're playing the Community Shield game in Leicester because, of course, Wembley is being used for the Women's Euros.
Yes.
So I'm hoping I'm going to get a ticket for that. I am certainly going to be at the Olympic Stadium, London Stadium, for the first weekend of the Premier League season, with City being away at West Ham. And then I've got tickets for the home game against Bournemouth. I can see Stuart Thomas pumping the air there because he's a West Ham fan. So I'm hoping I'm going to get to see a few games, but obviously I want a bit of a break. And just to answer your original question, once we get back from all that, we will start. I mean, the planning will be in process now for the new season. And it was a tough year last year. There's no getting away from that. No. COVID was very, very difficult. It moved the schedules all over the place, which meant that I think the narrative for the supporters was largely lost. And that's unfortunate.
Yep, that's true.
That's not to say that, there weren't some teething problems with the service as well. We know that. I'm told that those problems are going to be addressed. Obviously, I'm a match commentator, so that's not really my department.
It's not your bag.
But I would hope that next season we will have a much better year all round. And it's not just 10 and Paramount Plus that's got to step up to the plate. It's also the APL and the clubs. They promised us some marquee players, better marketing, a better schedule, obviously, which, hopefully they'll get without the pandemic interfering. And we've got the World Cup and the Women's World Cup at the top and tail of it. So it's an exciting 12 months to come. And, we're excited to bring it to you. And, the other thing, just to close off this particular part of the conversation, is, when things go wrong, it hurts us as much as everybody else does. Because at heart, we're football fans. I mean, you won't find much more of a passionate football supporter than me. I mean, I've been having arguments on Twitter today about where the money's going for the Olympics, and it should be going to football in Brisbane, and it's not. But anyway, so we're desperate to get things right and to provide the service that the league needs. But it's a partnership, and everybody's got to do their bit.
Yeah, and the audience has got to come to the party as well.
True.
No point saying we want free-to-air or streaming television or access to the games and then not access them. I mean, it's very simple. You know,
Football fans are very hard to please in this country. You know that, George.
Tell me about it.
Simon, speaking of football fans having to come to the party, do you feel as though this marquee approach that's being mooted looks as though we will see some pretty significant names apply their trade down under? Do you think that is going to go a long way to bringing those kind of fickle, critical people back watching the game on free to air?
Look, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. Marquees, and we've seen this in the past with Del Piero, Shinji Ono, Emil Heskey, Robbie Fowler to a certain degree. They can put bums on seats in the short term, but longer term, there is no quick fix to getting this league to where it needs to go. Yep. And that means winning over hearts and minds long term. The old saying is, you support the badge on the front of the shirt, not the name on the back. And that's what we need to get longer term. Now, you look at where Sydney FC are at the moment, and obviously a poor season didn't help off the pitch either, but neither did the move away from the Sydney Football Stadium. But their crowds were pretty average last season, same as a lot of clubs. So what's Del Piero's legacy long term? Did he get rusted on fans in their thousands to stay with the club long term? I don't think he did. And the same with all the others. So they can be a short-term sugar hit to spike people's interest, sure. And I think they're a good thing, and we should certainly invest in them. But longer term, there's got to be an awful lot more done off the pitch to connect with communities. And just a final point on this.
Yep.
One of the ways we do that, and I've banged on about this for many, many years, is the actual construction of facilities. It's bricks and mortar. It's a sense of permanence in your community. Training facilities, stadiums. We don't have enough of those things in the A-League. We move from ground to ground. Some clubs play 4, 5, 6 different home grounds every season. How can the fans forge any sort of an identity when you're on the road that much? Too often the pitches are full of rugby league markings or Aussie rules markings or cricket squares. That's not what we need long term. There's got to be that construction of a proper football culture. Dare I say it, like many clubs in the old NSL did. And it's to their eternal credit that they did that.
Yeah. Just before I let you go, you touched on something that really burns inside me. There's a magnificent new stadium opening in Sydney very, very shortly. Yep. And, of course, the Matildas are there, correct?
Yes.
But they're game number 3. And the first 2 games are rugby league and rugby union. And what do rugby union packs do to grounds? Don't start.
Well, George, did we honestly expect anything different?
Oh, no.
And look, again, this is part of the challenge for our game. We have got to have much more of a voice at all those important governmental and diplomatic levels.
Correct.
And at the moment, we're still the outsider sport. And, in fairness to politicians, they are of their society. They read the same papers as us. They have the same interests as the mainstream. And by and large, that means rugby league. It means Aussie rules. It means cricket. And we're nowhere. So we've got to somehow, make our voices heard. Now, we started off by talking about this event I did in Brisbane last night. Yep. And Joan Pease, who's the part of the Labor government in Queensland, got up and spoke very eloquently and beautifully about the brilliant impact that football was having on the Queensland economy and how many millions of dollars the game was bringing into that particular state over the next 12 months. And we all stood there and thought, well, that's great. How good are we doing putting money in your bank account?
Yeah.
What are you doing for us?
Thank you very much.
Where's our boutique stadium?
24 hours later, and the Olympic funding's heading the direction of rugby.
There we go.
Yeah,
that's where it's going. It's going to rugby league.
Yeah, don't start me. Simon Hill, as usual, fantastically well done. Listen, have a good break, and we look forward to catching up with you when you get back. And
thanks, guys,
and safe travels.
Thank you very much. Come on, City.
All right, we're going to take a break. Got another guest for you. Stuart Thomas
Stuart
has been
Thomas, yes,
talking
he's ready
sport.
and raring to go.
He's fired up, I can tell. And he knows, he'll talk about this business about marquees, because he's got some interesting ideas on it, and we might just mine some of those thoughts and see what we come up with. That's just in a moment or two. You're listening to State of Our Football Nation on FNR. George Danikian, along with a guy called Lockie Flanagan, who is wearing some colour brown.
All right, we're going to sort this out over the break.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. It's been a busy hour. I want to know, has the rain stopped in New South Wales?
That's a good question.
Stuart Thomas is our guest, arriving via Zoom. Stuart, welcome to FNR.
Good evening, George. Have you got me loud and clear?
Yeah, we have actually. There's just a little bit of an echo in the background, but that's okay. It's probably the water in your swimming pool.
It's been awful, but I must admit, this afternoon things have really cleared. We've had a bit of sun. I'm sort of on the back of a rural sort of situation, and we've got water running in all sorts of different directions.
Wow.
But it looks like the next few days that we'll get some relief. So I'm far from less stressed than many people in New South Wales and other parts of Australia, north and south on the eastern seaboard. But things are looking a bit better, which is really good to see.
From what I've heard, there are people saying to me, you cannot believe the weather we've had in the last year or two. It's been extraordinary. Is that accurate?
Yeah. We went through I heard some information about probably 7 or 8 days ago that the El Niño effect, was essentially over. And I'm not suggesting that was false information.
No.
But this recent 5 to 6 days of heavy rain has just really shown us how significant the previous 2 to 3 months were, because as soon as water hit the ground here in New South Wales, it wouldn't run away. There was obviously so much under the surface that it just sat on the surface, so to speak. And it was just incredible that there's obviously been such a backlog. I guess the best thing we can hope for is a really a fire season that doesn't impact too severely on people. Yeah. Hopefully we have so much moisture that will maybe give us a bit of relief for, what is always a scary time of year in Australia when the bushfire season rolls around.
Well, there's a reason why it becomes dangerous, because all the rains tend to do one thing, and that is they fuel those areas. They supply wonderful moisture, and of course that leads to great growth. And then, of course, come the summer months, you don't need much to set the flames, amongst the forest, and it becomes, as we've seen over the last 2 years, just horrific. But I'm reminded, you're a teacher. I'm going to take you back to 1905, and a woman by the name of Dorothea McKellar. She wrote a poem. She was in England at the time, and she was rather homesick. And it was about her country, my country. And she spoke about, the extraordinary sunburned country that she'd left down under, a land of, ragged mountain ranges and hills and whatever. But she spoke about the floods and rains. You would have thought that there are governments over the last 100 years that would have listened or learnt some of those lines and taken some advantage and thought, let's future-proof Australia. and they've done nothing. They've done nothing. And I'm talking, forget about what manner of politics it is. All of them, state and federal governments of all persuasions, have done little or nothing. The last great national challenge or project was the Snowy Mountain Scheme. And that's it. And they all stopped after that. They thought, what a great job we've done. And they've stopped. You think about it long and hard. It's scary.
It's funny, George. If I hadn't been here listening to the conversation from the start and I heard you say, we've missed our chance to future-proof the game, the governments haven't given us any help.
Oh, it sounds like football.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, hey, they're hand in hand. Stuart's been writing some stories over the last... I suppose, year and a half that I've been paying attention to. And you've sparked my interest every time, Stuart. And I thought, let's get Stuart on air and talk about some of the subject matter that you talked about. And Simon Hill was on just before you and was talking about the marquees and how not only do we need to get the marquees in, but we've got to get the right type of marquees. And you've spoken about marquees and what they can and can't do for the game. Just give us a sense of your school of thought and what we might be able to do this time around to make things a little better.
Well, if I just park the marquees for about 5 seconds.
Yeah, go for
it. Refer back to your comments in regards to government.
I was just ranting. I'm sorry.
Environment and so forth. You're exactly right. And the reasoning is that we all know that governmental policy, unfortunately, as you say, it doesn't matter what type of government you're talking about, has been incredibly short-term in terms of its vision and so forth.
Yeah.
And as you say, Snowy Scheme, yes, definitely something that saw a bigger picture, a grander picture.
Yeah.
And that's something that's been so lacking in this country across and Liberals and Labours and Greens and whatever else.
I don't care what colour it is.
Yeah, and they're all missing the point. And you're exactly right. The two of you both there saying that the correlation between that disgraceful lack of future vision and football is the most perfect metaphor. It is exactly what has been wrong with our game. Now, that's not to say our game is doomed, because I'm one of the most passionate and strongest believers in our game, despite much of the criticism that I might cop in social media, because people tend to perceive that calling out problems and a lack of vision is negative. I actually prefer to think that it's potentially creating a positive by calling out what's wrong and hopefully moving forward. Yeah. So I think what you've both said, it is absolutely so applicable to where we are, not only as a country, not only as an economy, not only as an environment, but also as a football country. But then you look at the marquee situation, which falls into that, because that is a direct. What's the word? It's sort of it fuels the competition in terms of our top tier of Australian football. And I thought Simon made a fantastic point. Now, I know Simon reasonably well. Simon and I might not agree on 100% of what we discuss, but I do agree with him on most points, and we have a very solid common ground in terms of that the past has been not rejected. That's probably a little harsh.
No, we've wasted it.
Yeah,
we've wasted it.
Yeah, and I think what is important is when we look at that marquee situation, yes, what Simon said, they are not a negative thing. It is definitely something that should be invested in, and we have strong history in our competition to show that it can in fact provide a boost. The problem is that when a name like Del Piero comes to Australia, which has an enormous positive impact upon the competition, upon the game, and an array of corporate realities.
Yeah.
The issue is if there is not another one right after him, what was the point? And that's what Simon was alluding to, in that, well, has he in fact created, and I think the term he used was rusted on group, and he hasn't. You know, he was terrific while he was here. He was brilliant to watch. Yeah. And it was terrific for Sydney FC and the league, and that's great. Everyone should celebrate that. But unless there is another one, and obviously he'd reached an age where he was off, and I think he went off to India and other places to finish his career. But unless there's another one, and then another one, and then another one, the point of that marquee sort of situation can actually be, it can seem quite cynical and it can seem quite hollow. Now, the announcement today and the investment that the A-League / APL have made in allowing clubs to spend this extra $600,000 outside of the salary cap is potentially groundbreaking. I would assume that a portion of that, if not most of it, is from the Silver Lake investment that we've all been
anticipating.
We've wanted to see where this will be spent. So we've potentially created a situation where there are huge names, as you've spoken about on your program tonight, huge names being bandied about as potential A-League players in the next 3 to 4 months. And that's terrific. Great, let's go for it. But that extra $600,000 potentially brings in another one to each club. And we could be in a situation where we're looking at a game changer. Might be a little bit too strong, but it certainly looks as though we've got to a point where we've got some money into the game where we might be able to actually offer a package and a star package that might be consistent and not just the one-off that then disappears.
You speak so clearly, and so much of it is on the money. The thing I'm reminded of again was the risk that Del Piero took with his career and reputation. He put it on the line, and this takes courage. It takes courage for a marquee to say, you know, I'm going to put my legacy on the line to play down under. And what he did, and it's why I have so much time for Del Piero, was he said, you know what? I think I can be a pilgrim. I can be a preacher. I can be one of those people out there to spread the word. And he was marvellous. I also have understood something else from this exercise. He got a chance while he was here to improve his English, so much so that he's now a very, very regular commentator on English-speaking television and radio, which was something he wasn't that fluent at, and that was something that he also added to this experience. He said, not only will I come down here and spread the word and showcase my talents, but I'm also going to further myself. And he gave his family a chance to also enjoy what was a beautiful time in Sydney.
And you're exactly right, George. And when you think about, obviously, people on the Eastern Seaboard have been very, very interested and invested in the story of Milos Nikovic. Bringing his, I mean, this man was a superb footballer. We all knew that when he came here. There were probably some people who thought, he might be one of those imports that stays for 2 or 3 years and then disappears. But with his children in school and entrenching his family on the Eastern Seaboard, and then watching this man's career unfold, you think, wow, isn't it? Part of me thinks that, Del Piero was wonderful for the A-League. Emil Heskey was wonderful for the A-League, and there have been numerous others.
Yep.
Part of me also thinks that perhaps the more sustained import or the more sustained investment might actually be better for the league. That Milos Nikovic is probably one of the most popular and most respected players we've had over the last decade, and he hasn't been here that long, but certainly over that period. And is he a brilliant footballer? Yes, he is. Was he of the class in terms of a Del Piero and the international accolades that he received? Probably not. But I think players like that might be better targets. And that's why I think that 600,000 figure, they're talking about a figure of about 2 million when they talk about Fabregas, with 50% potentially being paid outside of the club.
That's right.
And that is a huge figure. Now, is that sustainable across all clubs? Probably not. Certainly not, I would suggest. So perhaps the $600,000 figure outside of the salary cap gives us an option. If we could get 12 clubs to pick up 6 or 7 or 8 future Milos Ninkovic's, I think in terms of the long-term benefit, and that's what Simon was referring to, is doing something that is sustainable over a longer period. That might be a nice target point for us to go for. The $2 million and the superstar like Fabregas, okay, you know what? I'll jump on the wagon and say go for it. I've got no problem. Across 12 clubs, I don't think that's sustainable.
Yeah.
However, the quarter of that, the $600,000 player, I think that might be something that's more sustainable. But it's actually just pleasing that we're in a position now where we're talking about it and that we've actually got that investment there and we've got that money there to actually sort of make it possible, because I think over the last 5 years, many people were scared that we might not be in that position again.
Look, Thomas Sorensen came to Melbourne City, and what he gave the club was a couple of years of actual play, but what he's done behind the scenes and since then has added to the game. He's part of Optus. He's gone round and involved himself with charity after charity. He's been a magnificent ambassador for the game at 1,000 different levels, and business loves him too. So I'm thinking you bring us Cesc Fabregas, the state government of the day would want to have him on board. Businesses around the country would want to use, you know, what he has to offer to, you know, support and boost the showcasing of how to think like a winner. And these guys are winners. They've been travelling the world, playing in the most elite competitions with the biggest clubs in the world. Imagine what they can bring. And you've got to use them properly. Well,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because while you were answering that question, Stuart, I was thinking to myself, gee, who are the first three players when I think about my history of watching the A-League that come to my brain that I remember most
Dwight
fondly?
York.
And maybe there was a bit of cognitive bias because you just brought up Milos Ninkovic. But genuinely, the first three players that sort of came to my head in terms of foreign players who've come in from overseas, Thomas Broich, Bruno Fornaroli, and I guess Ninkovic would be there as well. And those are exactly those kind of players that you're talking about. But I guess the counter argument to that is that, well, those have an appeal to the people who are already in the door, the rusted on football fans. Do they have an appeal to those that we can convert to that? And I guess the marquee is kind of, and we sort of asked this question to Simon before. I'll put it to you. If the marquees are our sort of foot in the door, I guess, to any prospective A-League fan, what is that sort of next step or next steps that you see going from the foot in the door to actually getting the potential A-League customer to open the door up and let us into their homes? What do you see that as being?
Good point.
Well, I think it's a really good point, because as I've sort of alluded to, that sort of major marquee is probably not something that's going to be sustainable across every club. So that middle range is definitely important. Now, Thomas Broich, we could probably say he did crack and bring people into the Brisbane market. Yep. Definitely. Yep. Did Milos Ninkovic bring more people to Sydney FC? Probably a small amount, but I think the point is valid that, well, it's not as though he's brought in 20,000 to every Sydney game extra on top of what they already had.
It's also related to the football, though, isn't it? Because I think about Broich in particular, and part of the reason that you'd be interested in coming to watch his team and a player like him, despite his CV not being as large as a Fabregas or something like that, is that Brisbane Roar played brilliant football.
Oh, yeah.
Milos Ninkovic at his peak. I mean, some people have their own thoughts about the way Sydney played football, but they got results. And
absolutely.
That brings people in the door. I mean, Melbourne City with Bruno Fornaroli. The team was exciting to watch. And in that sort of 2014, 2015, 2016 years where he was at his best, the fans voted with their feet, and there was regularly 10,000 plus.
Yeah. And we had the Frenchman on one side, we had Bruno, and we also had Ross. Every time there was a free kick taken, he was scoring goals. I mean, they were exciting players who came on board. And I don't think they have to be absolutely top draw, but it helps, like
and
anything else.
George, that's what you were referring to in the piece that I wrote a few weeks ago in regards to, we've got a lot of our best international talent, and we're currently experiencing a bit of a boom in terms of, and most of them apparently or appear to be going to Scotland, which is really exciting for everybody. But we've got so many of our boys, and it's seemingly more over the last sort of 6 to 8 months. There is a real recognition of their talent and so forth, which is great for Australian football, because for too long we've had so many boys go overseas, sit on the plane for extended periods and waddle back to Australia with their tail between their legs. And,
true.
And as good a players as they are, things haven't worked out for myriad reasons, and that's okay. But we've had this recent surge, and the connection there is that people, I think, and I'm sure you're both across this, but I think many people listening probably need to understand that this is the first generation of footballers that we've had come through with a full experience of the national curriculum. Now, there are negative comments in terms of the curriculum. Is it perfect? Far from it. Is it the solution to make Australian football fantastic? No. Is it going to win Australia a World Cup in 16 years? Probably not. But there is certainly something there that we're now seeing a youth development, and I'm heavily involved in youth development here in Sydney, working with a gentleman who is so passionate that he does it for free. And to see kids, he's using more of an EFL model than the Australian model. Because he sees some limitations in that. Now, he's perfectly legitimately allowed to do that because he's running a private situation. But we're seeing boys now coming through that have had the experience of the curriculum right from the beginning, right to the age of, 19, 20, 21, 22. And all of a sudden, we're seeing more and more of those boys getting recognised overseas and picked up. And I think from my perspective, I was a little bit suspicious and sceptical in terms of this curriculum back when I was teaching in private schools and coaching football teams and looking at it and thinking, is this sustainable in the long term? But there is something happening that I think is positive for the game in terms of our youngsters. And we are seeing, unfortunately for the A-League, we are seeing players ripped out of our clubs and taken overseas. But in terms of Australian football, we've got to look at that as a positive. And it also provides opportunities for that next wave to come through. So there's a whole lot of factors that sort of intermingle and that sort of combine to make sense of this whole situation. The marquees are important. We've got to decide how big we want the marquees to be, how we also probably need to focus on a good middle range of marquee in that sort of Milos Ninkovic type that gives each club, as you referred to, that quality and class, but then also have a good think about our boys and where they're going.
It's interesting you say that. I have another view on that, and it's to do with the other round ball code, which is basketball. We don't have any problem, watching young basketballers heading to America to test themselves in the draft. And we've seen a whole new wave of energy and exposure, and the game is thriving again as it did in the early 80s when I was at Channel 9 and then went to Channel 10. They had hot programs on television. It was on free-to-air. The stadiums that were supporting the game were packed. And there was a lot of buzz around. And here we are again. There was a lull. The game was almost, over and about to give itself up when a couple of smart businessmen came on board and said, you know what, we can do this a little bit better. And the same thing is happening to baseball in Australia. The round ball code, basketball, is thriving because of the number of Australians overseas at the elite level. Now, we haven't got that at the moment in the round ball code football, but we are doing something where we haven't done before, and that is we're seeing a number of our coaches, Kevin Muscat in Japan, a guy called Ange Postecoglou in Scotland. A year ago, you remember, Stuart, when a guy called Alan Brazil laughed at the idea of a Postecoglou being chosen to lead one of the great clubs of Scottish. How dare they bring a guy from the Antipodes who I can't even pronounce his name. What does he know about football? Well, they've all found out now, haven't they?
Well, probably one of the most ironic lines I've ever read in my life is a gentleman who said, I'm just trying to get his line exactly right, but he was a Celtic fan, and his comment on social media was something like, "We searched around the world and the best we could come up with was an Australian bloke named Ange." And he was absolutely livid. And I simply replied to him and I said, "Mate, you have no idea. You have no idea what you're getting, because this is a man that he'll strip your club to the floor, but he'll build your club into something wonderful."
Did you see the score this morning in Europe? Celtics
No,
game?
I didn't.
7-0.
No, oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't see it, no.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we talk a lot in Australia about, Euro snobbery and so forth, and that's a real thing. We understand.
Oh, it's real. It's alive and well.
But the same thing obviously applies in terms of, flipped over to the other side of, the world. But they truly just thought we can't have an Australian. not that I think they necessarily had an issue with him being Australian.
No.
But we can't have an Australian that we don't know. We can't have an Australian who coached in Japan. I mean, come on.
Isn't it fantastic, though, that the Celtic fans took to Ange so well? They even managed to do the unmentionable. They actually managed to get his name into a song.
Yes,
which is
more than one as well.
Which is some effort, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
which tells you how much they love the man.
It's quite funny as well, because I'm someone who follows both, just because of my family, Scottish football and Australian football. And when that sort of the Ange move first happened, our relationship got off to a very rocky start, because both leagues were kind of pointing at each other and saying, "Why should we listen to you? You're a terrible league. It's a boring competition." But over that time, Ange is kind of. He's brought the two together, and I think there's quite a nice synergy between Australian and Scottish football now, and they do recognise the similarities in one another, and we're seeing that from the the players who've gone both ways, particularly from Australia to Scotland too.
There's a young Tottenham centre half, American boy, Carter Vickers, and he's now left Tottenham and become a full-time player at Celtic, and in fact he signed a long-term contract. And he said, I spoke to Ange, or Ange spoke to me, and he said, "I couldn't help but want to be part of his campaign." And that, to me, in essence, is the hallmark of any great teacher, when they can reach out to you and capture your imagination. And we saw it with a guy called Otto Rehhagel, who managed to somehow get through the thick skins of a bunch of Greek footballers in 2004, and they did the unbelievable. And Adidas managed to create a campaign where they used the word impossible, and the campaign was "Impossible is nothing." And Ange, here again, to all the naysayers, to all the knockers, has said, "You know what? I'm going to do it my way." And it's reaping wonderful returns, and long may it continue. But let's not also forget, there's a young guy called Kevin Muscat, who had a checkered career at various times, and he's doing some great things. And there are other Australian coaches, Joe Montemurro in Italy with the women's, doing some tremendous things. And there are, of course, a bunch of Australian footballers, female and male, who was showcasing to the world that just because you're from Australia doesn't mean you can't play.
Yeah, and the irony, George, I guess, is that so many of the things that I've written over the last 2 to 3 to 4, but 7 years in total.
Yep.
There's so much commentary around, it's negative, it's this and this, and you think, no. We have so many footballers. We have players playing at the top level in. I'm just thinking about Owen Mobile's new contract.
In
I'm thinking about Matty Ryan.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the elevated level that is now in international football, where we talked about, and this is a very controversial thing that some people will take up and call me all sorts of horrible names, but we had a Premier League, well, what was originally an English top league or Division 1, whatever we used to call it, where African footballers were not really a part of it, and we've the game has broadened. We have footballers from Asia, from Africa, from North Africa, who have all come to the Premier League. And of course, we once had 6, 7, 8 players playing at that level. Well, we don't now. And that is for the exact same reason why England don't have as many players playing in that competition, because the world now plays in that competition.
Exactly.
So our boys have been forced to step back a division, or move to another country, or head off to Belgium or to
Germany. Yeah.
Exactly. And to play there. They are not lesser footballers. They are just as competent, but that competition with its ridiculous financial situation has created this elitism that, let's face it, many of our boys who had a little bit of a crack there many years ago wouldn't survive there these days.
It's almost progressed to the point where it's almost not just Euro snobbery, is it? There is almost a level of Premier League snobbery there, because it is easy to forget that, yes, some people do view the Premier League as the sort of alpha and omega of European competition. But you have players, as you've mentioned, Stuart, who are playing or about to be playing in La Liga. You obviously had Aiden Krslovic, who was at Eintracht Frankfurt as well. If you look outside of the the utopia that is the Premier League, there are still players who are playing their trade at that very solid European level, and the Premier League is a different kettle of fish now to what it once was in those days you're referring to.
Before I let you go, Stuart, I want to take the time to say thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep stirring the pot. It's not negativity. It's just making us think, and I love that. Here's something I want you to do. Because our programming allows us to go beyond the normal realm of what old radio used to do, that it always had boundaries. Streaming radio has no boundaries. We go around the world. So if Tom Rogic is listening, what advice do you have for Tom Rogic tonight, Stuart?
Well, the first thing I would say, that a little bit of the stuff that I read over the last 24, 48 hours, and Graham Arnold's comments in regards to, texting and not getting a response, I actually felt a little bit uncomfortable about that. I was really concerned, and I hope he's okay. And I don't know the full, and I'm sure
story.
I doubt anyone really knows, the full story of exactly what's happening at this point. And we know that there's obviously been the turning down of a significant contract that looked quite appealing. There's been rumours, potentially, he'll pop back in Australia. The one thing I can say about Tom Rogic is that probably Tom played his football at Tuggeranong in Canberra.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just had a relative of mine. I spend a fair bit of time in Canberra because I have relatives down there. And my young niece, Carly, was just here for 2 nights, and they're from a place called Caldwell, which is literally 5 minutes down the road from Tuggeranong. And every time I go down there and stay with them, I always say, Tom Rogic is from Tuggeranong, and they say, and they're not massive football fans, and we have a bit of a chuckle. And in terms of, grassroots football and where players come from, I find that quite moving to know that this boy came from this very, very cold, humble little place on the south side of Canberra, and elevated himself to a Socceroo. And when I first saw him play, I just thought, wow, Tom Rogic and Aiden Krslovic, to me, are the 2 players that when I've seen them play for the Socceroos, I've sort of said out loud, that's the best player in the team. They are both outstanding. Tom was absolutely brilliant. Then he went off to Celtic, and he's played his role with the Socceroos. He probably hasn't quite hit the heights. Aiden Krslovic is proving to everyone how wonderful he is. But I'm a little bit concerned about Tom's next move. Not that I would ever be arrogant enough to give him advice as to where that should be, but I hope he makes a decision and he moves somewhere. And if that is to Melbourne City, or to Brisbane Roar, or to Perth Glory, or to Central Coast Mariners, I hope he makes a decision that truly makes him happy, because there seems to be a growing feeling that he feels a little bit, I won't say lost, but he feels a little bit unhappy where he is right now, and he's looking for something else. So
interesting comment from you, because I was listening earlier today to a 15, 16-minute interview with Nick Kyrgios. And Nick Kyrgios was talking about, they asked him why he had taken so much time on the court with his head down. And he sat there and he said, I was just thinking how far I've come in such a short time. He said, because over the last couple of years, there were many times when I thought I've fallen out of love with this game. I don't want to play it. I've been playing it since I was 7 and this, that and the other. He was thinking self-harm. He was thinking all those terrible things that we don't want our young men and women to have to go through. But he was brave enough on global television to actually open up for a moment and give us a glimpse of some of the things that rush through his mind at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I'm reminded of just how complicated a world we live in today, and the challenges of young men and women who've had to, address and start to live their lives in the world of social media. No one's had any training into social media, and I can tell you that the levels of toxicity, had they been around when I started in television 100 years ago, I may well have rethought some of the things that I was doing or was prepared to do. So I marvel at the last few days of this remarkable campaign that young Kyrgios is mounting. He has his doubters, he has his naysayers and critics, and Lord knows there are a few of them, and they come from everywhere. But I'm reminded also of what a prodigious talent he is. Now, does that let him off? No, it doesn't let him off. But he's also growing. Yes, he's a late bloomer. He's 27, but young Rogic is also going through some challenges. I'm not suggesting for one moment they're the same, but there might be some things that have also chilled him when it comes to how much he loves the game or doesn't love the game.
It's interesting.
Yeah, we wish him all the best.
And Tom Rogic is probably, I'm not guessing at this. This is reasonably well informed, but I doubt he's had a more stronger advocate than Ange Postecoglou through his career.
Touche.
Ange has always been there, and he loves Tom, and that's why he's there or has been there at Celtic playing. So after the season they've just had, for Tom to now be looking a little bit lost and looking elsewhere and not feeling comfortable, that sort of suggests that there's something inside him that he's not fulfilling right now, and he needs to look elsewhere. So I just hope that he finds that place and he lands somewhere where we can still see Tom play for the next 5, 6, 7 years, because at his age, he's got plenty of football in front of him. And also, from a Socceroo perspective, that's important that we do that, because I still think if we pick our best 11 at a World Cup, I still think Tom Rogic is a part of it.
You know what? We're in the World Cup and we're playing Tunisia. We're playing, who else?
France and Denmark.
I reckon, you know what? Denmark are a very good side. Don't mark my words, but they're beatable. I'm not saying we're going to beat them.
We got a draw against them in 2018. I know it's 4 years is a long time, but still.
And it's all about attitude. And I'm reminded time and time and time again how different life can be when you adopt a different mentality, a different attitude. Positivity is everything. Not everyone can do it and actually walk the walk. A lot of people can pretend, but if we can all get them on the same page, you only have to do it for 1 or 2 games, get to the next level. Can you imagine? Oh, my God. Anyway, listen, Stuart, it's been terrific chatting and chewing the fat about a number of different topics. Thank you for joining us today and helping us get through what has been an hour and a half of a very busy hour on FNR. I trust we can find you and do some more, because I know you're getting yourself ready for another long gig. You got second test coming up, Australia, Sri Lanka, in Sri Lanka. And the first test only lasted 3 days.
And, well, I've heard reports this afternoon, and I think at least 5 Sri Lankans are down with COVID.
Oh,
so
no.
Dear.
The game appears to be going ahead, but it's certainly going to be a big challenge. And then we move on to a feast of, we've got A-League obviously not too far away. We've got the Builders and all sorts of things happening. So it is a busy, busy time, but it has been an absolute pleasure to talk, George. I really appreciate it.
No worries at all. I'm getting myself ready to see Crystal Palace play at the MCG. And Patrick Vieira has managed to do something that I didn't think anyone could do at Crystal Palace. He's made them look like a unit and a half.
Yeah.
And they had some results. They had some results. And he's managed to find some young players who have got the skills and they also understand how to entertain. And that wasn't always the case at Crystal Palace.
Definitely not. It's very, very stark difference from Roy Hodgson football. To
absolutely.
Patrick Vieira
Absolutely.
brand.
Say that again. All right, my friend. Look after yourself. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it.
Stuart Thomas joining us on FNR. Lockie, it's been, as I said, a very lengthy hour, and I notice it's stretched to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you for
no
allowing me
complaints
to.
from me. None
Thank you for
whatsoever.
allowing me to, as they say, expand that hour. They say, how can you do that? Only on FNR can you put 90 minutes into an hour.
Perfect. We'll see you again next week.
You got it, my boy. You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.